Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today we're doing some more testing with this ICM paint, and this time we're going to see how it performs in the airbrush. So we want to see how this paint performs when we put it through the airbrush. So I have a little bit of a challenge for the paint system today. We're going to have a go at airbrushing this 172 scale MiG-29 from the Ukrainian Air Force, and the main body colour on this is off-white. So we're using the recommended paint. This comes in their Ghost of Kiev paint set. And is also included in the 80 colour paint set as well, and we're going to be putting it down on grey primer, so a little bit of a challenge for the white paint, I think. So really interested to see how it performs going through the airbrush, how well it lays down, what the drying time's like, what the finish is like when it's been airbrushed, and how well it covers grey primer, because that's the ultimate challenge for a white paint, I think. So this is ready to go, and you will be able to see this build in a build diary at some point. So let's get the airbrush set up and see how we get on. I have thinned some of this white paint, off-white, just with water, as I found that was the best thinner when we did the thinning experiment. So I'm about to spray, so I'm going to have to mask up, which means that from now on we'll be flipping to voiceover. So we're using the white that comes in the Ghost of Kiev kit, paint kit. The primer we're using here is Ultimate Grey Primer. And what I'm doing initially is I'm putting the off-white paint down that's been thinned just with water at this stage. What I found was I was getting a small amount of tip dry, and I think that was down to it's slightly a warm day and my air pressure. But as you can see, I was able to put some down on the tail as quite a light mist coat, and it's going down quite well here. It's easy to see it going down with the white on the grey, but the coverage is really quite good. It's behaving itself normally, and once I got into my rhythm, the paint was going down really well, and I didn't get any more tip dry at this point. So it's really behaving itself. So yeah, like I say, quite a warm day, going down really well. I was able to modulate with my finger the pressure and create some dark spots and light spots, so I had some modulation, so I could emulate worn paintwork if I wanted. So I was just messing around with it, trying different ways of doing it at this stage, but I was really happy with the coverage and how it was going down. So here you can see I'm starting to block in and go over it and put a second coat in, and then we're going in and putting some more paint down. Now, I did have to paint this properly for a build project. It isn't a test piece. So if you're interested in seeing the Ghost of Kiev kit being built, there is a video on it where we paint it and finish it all in one video. So yeah, I was really happy with how it initially went down. Now, just for reference, I'm using as a 0.2 needle in this airbrush, and my compressor was set at about 20 psi, which is my standard starting point, and then I can mess around from it for there. I ended up not adjusting my compressor and left it at that all the way through this process. Now you can see one small paint cup full has done. You can see how much it's done. I'm empty at this point, so I was just mixing some more paint. Now, everybody airbrushes differently, and I tend to use a combination of side to side and circular motions when I'm airbrushing, depending on what I'm trying to achieve. What I was trying to get as an end result here was an overall even finish. I didn't particularly want it to look warm. We've got a lot of decals to go over this. So I'd gone down with my sort of uneven finish technique and found that the paint had behaved nicely. And you can see effectively this is a second coat. So it's a second coat of off-white onto a dark grey primer. And I was finding it was blocking in really well. So only a second coat needed. And again, all thinned with water, behaving really nicely. One of the advantages of it being thinned with water was that it was drying off fairly quickly as well. And what I found was I could go around with just air and flash that water off really quite quickly and get the paint hard enough for second coat. I did go back and do some third coats in little areas. So some of the areas, joins and things, or where I'd just missed, not overlapped, misting particularly well. So I did put a third coat on in places, but it wasn't there wasn't a requirement for an overall third coat. And you can see it's really looking fantastic at this stage. Okay, I have got my paint down, and I have to say I'm quite impressed. I've had no problems at all getting the paint through the airbrush. I have not once had any paint drying on the needle, so I tried a couple of times. So it's performed really well from a point of view of mechanically going through the airbrush. The only issue that I've had is down to my inexperience of thinning this paint. So first paint we put down was slightly too thick. Second one we put down was slightly too thin. The third one, in the Goldilocks way, was just right. So having a little bit of play and working out the thinning ratio for it is really about right. Now on the box it says between 40 and 60%. I went with about roughly 40, but you know, it wasn't done scientifically with droppers or anything, and then increased it. So in the airbrush I think you're closer to 60%, but I was being cautious because this is white. But you can see it's gone down on the grey quite well, and it's drying to a nice even matte colour. So I'm really happy with it. I think it's gone down really well despite my inexperience in thinning it. So the next question is, how easy is it to clean the airbrush? So we've just drained the airbrush now, and I'm going to use my usual process for cleaning the airbrush. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to chuck some water in and get that in the chamber so it's nice and wet. And we're just going to drain the paint cup. You can see the water is dissolving some of the paint in the paint cup, so that's quite good to start with. Then compressors, and we're going to put a little bit of airbrush cleaner in, and with a clean brush, I've just washed this brush so it's wet. Just going to go around the paint cup. I'm not scrubbing it, I'm just getting anything that'll dissolve to come off, and we'll get that into the chamber but not fully blown through. So I'm going to leave it there so you can see there's still some in the chamber there. Take the paint cup off, and we're going to give the paint cup a clean so we know that's completely clean. Okay, we know that in the chamber we've still got paint because it still looks milky, so I'm going to put a bit of water through it a couple of times now. And I've got to say that's already starting to look quite clean. It's dissolving very well. A bit more cleaner. And again, a clean brush. Just stirring it up. Now that would be clean enough, I think, to go through, put another colour through. You could put another colour in, make sure it's flowing the right shade and it's not being contaminated by the white and the cleaning products, the water that we've put through. But I'm just interested to see how well it's come off the needle. Actually, that's not bad. So we do have paint on the needle, but it's not bad at all. And that just wipes off. Well, that's cleaned up really easily. It's not becoming stubborn as it dries. The dried paint has come off really easily. In fact, a lot of it has come off with just a little bit of water. So I have no real issues with this. I think from the point of view of cleaning your airbrush, not a problem. There's no trapped paint in the nozzle assembly. So yeah, I am really happy with that. So whilst I've been stripping the airbrush down and giving it a bit clean, and you've been watching that, the paint has been drying, and what I can say is it's drying to a nice matte finish. My learnings is as long as you get the thinning right, thinning it with water, it will go through the airbrush fine. So thinking about the previous video when we looked at thinning and thinning with water was the best system for thinning the paint for brush painting, my conclusion is that works fine for the airbrush as well. Now you might want to use one of the solvent thinners that we also said worked okay with this as well. So if you prefer to do that for whatever reason, then go and have a look at that video if you've not done so on thinning ICM paints. But that performed very well, bearing in mind that this is white and therefore it would be the most difficult to put over the grey. I think it's covered really well. I've done 3 passes over that. It's a different shade underneath, so I'm going to have a play on the underside now and see how that comes up, but I need this to dry first because I need to do a bit of masking. Okay, so I think the ICM paint goes through the airbrush no problem at all. Really impressed with how easy that has been to both get through the paintbrush. So Vallejo paint quite often gives me tip dry, so does MIG paint, but I didn't have any problems with tip dry at all with this acrylic paint. Now this is only the first time I've put ICM paint through an airbrush, so it may be different colours give different problems, but so far so good. I hope that was useful, and if you're interested in ICM paints, this has been an insight into how well they work. There will be another video where I sum it all up for those people that perhaps don't want to watch the experiments in action. But for now, I think the ICM paints are doing okay. So you enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon. Thanks for watching.